for attending. All right, so you all out there are listening to a careers advice webinar by the Royal Australian Chemical Institute, the professional association for chemists in Australia. I'm Anthony Katselis, a 2018 mentee in the RACI mentoring program. Now, it's a simple fact, students learn a lot from each other, and in this webinar, we've invited recent graduates who've left university, made their first forays into their professional careers. Now, the panel of graduates here are going to be discussing their own experiences, what they've learned, and any participants out there are going to have an opportunity to ask any burning questions you got. So before we start this evening's panel, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're meeting all around Australia. We want to recognise the elders past and present and emerging, and also their contributions as Australia's first scientists and engineers. Building a healthy and safe community and what they've done and what we can still learn from their ways. We also need to thank the sponsors of this program, the RACI's Career Development Program, Envirolab, Laboratory Credit Union, and DCS Technical. Now, I can speak for myself in saying that with a bit of training and guidance from the RACI mentoring program, I was able to secure my first job in chemistry not long after I've graduated from university. And now I'm thoroughly enjoying my role as a development chemist at Dyno Nobel. Today, I have with me four of the excellent panelists who are also alumni of the RACI mentoring program, and it is illustrative to see just how diverse their careers have already become and are becoming. I'll start with Maggie Tong. Hello, Maggie.
Hi. So my name's
Maggie. Go introduce yourself.
To introduce myself. Yeah, my name's Maggie. I graduated from the University of Sydney last year with a degree in chemistry and maths. So it's a Bachelor of Science Advanced. So I was a mentee in the RACI mentoring program last year. And this year I am working for Defence Science and Technology as part of the Defence Graduate Program. So my work right now involves doing mathematical modelling and computer simulations, as well as doing analysis, both qualitative and more quantitative stuff about defence combat capability.
Fantastic. Thanks, Maggie. What about you, Claire? Tell us a little bit about yourself, the role you have now, who you work for, and so on.
So I did a chemistry degree and honours at Sydney Uni a few years ago. It was 2017, and I was part of the RACI mentoring group. I started at PwC in 2018, and I've been there since. And I'm in the trust and risk business. So we do, basically speaking, we do lots of audits. We do financial statement audits, internal audits. That's my role at the moment. We do lots of work for clients. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great. No, great. Thanks very much, Claire. And over to you, Kaiin Wu. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kaiin. I'm currently a graduate at the Australian Department of Health. So at the moment, I'm based in Canberra, but originally from Brisbane. So I graduated from the University of Queensland with an honours degree in chemistry just last year. And I was also a 2019 member of the RACI mentoring program. So with the graduate program, I'm meant to move around a little bit throughout the year. Obviously, it's been interrupted a little bit because of COVID-19. But my role at the moment is in data and analytics. So I'm just providing some project support. Obviously, the government's interested in looking at how COVID-19 has impacted the health and the healthcare of Australians. So I'm just helping out with that. And I've also just come out of a 2-month stint in the National Incident Room. I'm just assisting with communications for the health department there as well. So yeah, any questions about public service, feel free to ask. I'm happy to share.
Great. And that's also going to be great help there, because I'm sure there's a lot of the attendees out there that are really interested in jobs in public service. So you've got Maggie here, who works for Defence, Kaiin, and then we've got Lauren. Hello, Lauren Neeson. Welcome. Please tell us about yourself and your role.
Hi, so my name's Lauren and I graduated last year from the University of New South Wales with a Bachelor of Nanoscience with my year of honours. I'm currently working at Envirolab as a laboratory technician, and so that ranges from sample preparation to instrument care and just day-to-day operation in the lab.
Fantastic, good stuff. And I guess a little bit about me. So as I mentioned, I'm a development chemist working for Dyno Nobel. I graduated from University of Sydney with an honours degree in chemistry in 2018, and basically walked out of university and into this role A lot of the success in getting that role came down to the training I got in the RACI mentoring program, in particular the area of networking. And it was through networking that I was able to meet one of the other academics at the university who knew that in Dyno Nobel they were looking for an R&D chemist, contacted them, said hello, and here I am today. As I was briefly mentioning earlier, a lot of my look, Dyno Nobel is one of the world leaders in explosive technologies. We focus a lot on the mining sector, and in the US a lot in quarrying and all other parts of the world too. And essentially, one of the key focuses of my particular role is looking at developing new products as one part, but also evaluating the performance of new raw materials. So I've taken, I guess, a very traditional chemistry type role, but as you can see, among the panelists here, we all have quite diverse roles in chemistry and science. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to transition to some of the questions regarding finding a job. So you know how I found my job. I'll go to Lauren and ask you, what was it about your path to EnviroLab that helped you get the role?
Yeah, so I echo your sentiment about the importance of networking. It was through the RACI mentoring program that I met Tanya, who is the head of EnviroLab. And from there, when I noticed that there was a job listing for a lab technician and realized that technically my qualifications didn't perfectly align with what they were looking for, I knew that if I didn't reach out and say hi, I wasn't going to even be considered. So sent a message asking who I should contact about the role and got an interview, and here I am now.
Fantastic. So again, yeah, that sentiment, networking can be and is a very important skill to develop, and definitely the mentoring program is going to help a lot of us out there to develop that skill. I can certainly remember one of the first events we went to. It was nerve-wracking. It was quite scary, but thanks for all the training, Dave. You've been a great support. So I guess then that'll sort of bring me to a different question then. And maybe I'll ask this question of Claire. And Claire, the question to you is, how did you sort of know what you wanted to do coming out of university? Was it a pretty clear-cut, direction on where you wanted to go? Please elaborate. Tell us more.
No, it was not clear cut at all. That's almost a bad question to ask me because I never really decided to do this job. Towards the end of uni, I sort of felt like maybe a chemistry job wouldn't be suitable for me. No specific reasons. I just wasn't particularly drawn to a job doing traditional chemistry. So I basically applied for every single graduate position in corporate, in the corporate world that there was. Luckily, I got one of them and I enjoy it. But I never decided that I wanted to be an auditor, really. I almost fell into it.
That's fantastic. And personally, I can say sometimes getting the job that you weren't sure you wanted will always turn out to be something that you quite enjoy, but you got to try it to find out. And maybe I'll sort of pivot there over to Kaiin and ask the question, what about yourself, Kaiin? Because you ended up as a graduate in the public service in the Department of Health. Is this something you've always been aspiring to do?
No, actually, I feel like quite similar to most people coming into uni, just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I guess I had a vague idea that I wanted to do science and I liked chemistry. I tried out research, so I had a couple of research experiences in second and third year. And after that, I kind of realized that, maybe I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. So that's when I kind of got more interested in public service. So I've always been interested in kind of government, but I guess public service really mirrored the reasons why I got into science. I want to help the community, stuff like that. In about early 2019, I started getting really interested in public service, and the mentor that I was set up with in the mentoring program was also a person working in the Queensland government. So through that, got even more interested. I found out, it was really something I wanted to do. It really kind of crystallized, I guess, third year, final year of uni.
Okay, yeah, great, fantastic. And maybe that's also a good question to ask you too, Maggie, because you work for Department of Defence. Right? By the sound of it, your job sounds pretty damn cool. So tell us a little bit about your pathway from university into the role of Defence.
To be honest, I think I also had, like me, a year and a half ago, had no idea that I would be where I am today. For context, I'm actually in South Australia because that's where defense science and technology is based. And so I had no idea that this was where I would be. I had no idea that defense even was a thing, there was an option, to be honest.
Mhm.
And so I applied for the defense graduate program. And at that stage, all I knew was there's defense, it exists, and there's defense science and technology, and they probably do really cool science because it's science and tech. So then when I got accepted into the grad program, I also didn't actually know what exactly I would be assigned to. In fact, I did not know what my job would entail until I really got here and started doing it. And
Mhm.
that was very much the case for a lot of like all the other grads in my cohort. And I think what I realized was that a lot of the times you think you're interested in something or you're not sure what you're interested in, but it is the case that there's so many jobs that exist that you don't actually know exist. And that's something that you find out when you enter the workforce. You find out there's so many things that you could become interested in that you just literally did not know existed.
Yep, certainly. So, look, I guess this is a good point to ask you guys, Maggie and Kaiin. Are you happy if people were to sort of reach out to you to ask for advice on how to sort of, prepare for a Australian government role? Because I understand it's quite a process and it needs a very specific and tailored approach to that application. Are you guys happy to talk about that if people have questions?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember like applying for the grad program in like February, March, hearing back in like October. So yeah, it's a long, grueling journey.
Yeah. So the thing I hear is
It's
but
slow.
basically don't stop your life for this job that you're applying for. Keep it moving and be prepared for good or bad news, however it goes. But of course, apply and see how you go. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of preparation. So I might ask a question for I guess for Lauren, because you're doing what sounds like more of a traditional chemistry role. Are there any, tell us a little bit about the skills that you've learned so far and along the way.
Oh gosh, I mean, I had already done a fair bit of analytical chemistry as part of my degree, but spending, a couple of days in the lab at uni isn't the same as working with an instrument day in, day out, learning its quirks and trying to keep it working when it's running, through so many samples a day. I think a lot of that troubleshooting and just hands-on experience is one of the main things that I've definitely learned.
Definitely. Okay, yeah, no, I myself too. I work in a lab, partly in a lab and partly out in the field as well. And I can definitely say, yeah, you do get a lot of practice on the instruments, and at the same time, you do get a lot of chance to try new things in time, times for me. But honing those skills is good, definitely early career anyhow. One thing I can comment on is that a lot of the people that are now leaders in my organisation were at one stage chemists, and they all had the opportunity to hone their skills in the lab, and it helps them make executive level decisions based on product and customer based requirements. So good skills to learn there, definitely. I'll go over to Claire then and ask the question too. What is it that you enjoy about the job you're doing now, and what sort of skills have you learned along the way?
I do enjoy my job. I really like that I can do something different every day. I've never done a repetitive task. It's always jumping onto something new, different people, different client, a different industry, which can be sometimes overwhelming because you have to learn a whole bunch of stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
But I never get bored, basically. What I've learned is that no two companies are the same. There's so much variance in what everybody does and the way things are run. You can't, I suppose you can't paint everything with the same brush.
Certainly.
Interesting one.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I guess one thing about a lot of the skills you learn when studying chemistry and science is that those skills can be transferred into different fields, like in auditing, for example. And your analytical skills definitely can get a good solid workout when you're working in that field. So that's good to hear. Okay. So is there something, Maggie, that's uniquely different about what you're doing work-wise in where you are now compared to what it was like at university? Can you give us a bit of a insight there?
Everything?
Good. Yeah, tell us.
Because I did a degree in maths and chemistry, and that was very much, I did honors in chemistry. So for the last couple of years, I did a lot more chemistry than maths or anything else. And here at my job, well, it's not directly chemistry related. And everything, I think one of the key things is that teamwork is so much more important where in my job right now than it was in the past. Because at university, although you have your group assignments here and there, essentially you're just doing your own work. If you have a research project, at the end of the day, it is just your research project. Whereas here in my job right now, there's a lot more collaboration, and you're on the table as equals with your colleagues, and you're working through a problem, you're brainstorming together, you're coming up with a solution. And I guess another big point of difference is when you're doing physical sciences, you go down into the nitty gritty. So if it's chemistry, it's like you have like all the details at like the most fundamental level of what's going wrong with the reactions, what's happening with molecules.
Mhm.
Whereas the sort of analysis that I'm doing for my job now, it's more higher level stuff in the sense that I don't need to be an expert on every single technology that the defense has. But what my team does is find a holistic picture of maybe the different capabilities, different technologies, the different parts that comprise a capability. Say, for example, if I'm looking at a scenario where I'm looking at, say, how can I counter a drone attack, then I don't personally need to know all the technologies to make a drone work or like all the technologies people use, but my group's role is to talk to the people who are the experts and do analysis, an overall bigger picture analysis. So it's realizing that there's more to science than just the nitty gritty. There's like the bigger picture question as well. The science you can do with that.
Yeah, that's right. And I can also add to that a little bit and say what I'm doing, I'm in an R&D role myself, and actually understanding the nitty-gritty and the detail of it all is only part of it. And actually it's quite different at the academic level that it is to a level that, let's just say a practical level or an industry-based level, because a lot of the time you're out there trying to solve problems. And I imagine that's very much what you do there, Maggie. You're trying to solve problems and you're effectively using the tools that you've learnt to do that. And it's quite an interesting transition from uni life or academic life to industry-based life. So yeah, thanks. Great answer. Okay, what about Kaiin? Tell me, look, graduate roles in graduate programs can also be quite daunting and quite interesting. Then they do promise movement around and so on. So tell us a little bit about the first few weeks in the role, and has it met expectations for you so far?
So as I said, the graduate program at Health. So essentially, it was supposed to be three-month rotations throughout the year. COVID has interrupted that. So I spent the first month in data and analytics, and yeah, like as Maggie said, like it's completely different to university, completely different to chemistry. It was definitely not what I was expecting when I came to the graduate program. I think I was expecting something like, because we have, therapeutic goods administration, chemistry related. I was expecting something chemistry related, but no, yeah. So I sort of came into the data analytics role, and as a graduate, it's very much geared towards you becoming a kind of like handy type person. So that enables you to get a diverse range of experiences across, like even within the team that you're currently working in. So yeah, like in the first couple of weeks, I was, head in the books, learning about all these random different health topics and psychology and all these things like in health that I had no idea about from university, and also trying to pick up some data analytics skills as well. So yeah, it's been crazy. And then, so I was there for a month, and then I kind of transferred out as COVID happened. So I transferred into communications. And then that was having to learn a whole different set of skills. And then now that I've returned, obviously COVID's happened, and our data analytics team is kind of geared towards that more now. So I've had to just pick up, a whole new set of topics, learn everything new. Yeah, I feel like because with chemistry and science, for example, in honours, you would learn about your research project and the background to it, and then you'd just be running on that for the year. But yeah, I found that in public service and in work that you're going to be learning things every day, every week. You're going to have to pick up something new.
Certainly. And look, yeah, definitely. You go and study chemistry or science in general. Look, it's whatever you learn there, it's going to be a big springboard for you to go and dive into a numerous number of different careers. And it may not be what you expect, but it definitely opens up a lot of doors. And it's good to see such a diverse range of people here and using their science background. So I'll ask a question to Claire. Specifically, I want to know, when it came to applying for jobs, how many resumes did you actually send out? Just give us a broad brush answer.
I didn't keep track of it, but it was probably 50 or 60.
It can be quite grueling, can't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I sent out 50 or 60. I did 3 interviews and then got 1 offer. And if I didn't get that 1 offer, I don't know what I'd be doing now. It is very grueling.
And definitely one thing about the mentor program that you do is you learn a lot of those job readiness skills. I do remember Dave was coaching me quite strongly. Can you attest to that as well? A lot of the skills you learned really helped you with your application process?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely networking. Even though networking didn't directly get me my job, it's very important, and more important the further down your career you go. I feel like in university you can sort of get away with not doing it because you can just talk to your friends and talk to the lecturers and it's always fine. But then once you get out into the workforce, it's really important to make those connections because those are the people that you're going to be getting work from. And if you change jobs, it's often through your network.
Certainly. So
Yeah.
I'll just ask, I guess, a similar question to Lauren then around the job application process. Through the process, how many interviews did you actually have before you got the role that you did? And you were talking about how great networking is and it helped you get the job as well. Do you think that being part of a network has helped kind of short circuit the job, acquisition process a little bit? Because sometimes you have to do multiple interviews. What are your thoughts?
So I was applying for jobs all throughout last year while I was still finishing my degree and had a few interviews, including for the Defence Graduate Program. And it was, through those that I could continue to practice and develop my ability to perform well in interviews and present my best self. But I definitely think that the networking did help because, like I said, the specific set of questions that were listed on the job listing that I initially saw, I either surpassed and so couldn't say that I had those specific qualifications, or I had something similar but not close enough that I could say, yeah, no, I have this. Mm-hmm. And so being able to approach someone directly as opposed to being, a number on a spreadsheet was definitely super helpful there. And then in the interview process, being able to come in and already have an understanding of the people and the culture was also really helpful.
Fantastic, good. And that's a great answer because there's a question here from, I guess, Neve Kerwick, an attendee, and I've been asked the question here, is there any course I can do to learn about analytical equipment maintenance? A lot of jobs request it, but I have not got a lot of learning experience from university in this respect. Now, I guess that kind of, in a way you answer that question. You don't necessarily always have to have the, key and lock skills that they're asking for, but you're most of the way there. And if you can, I guess, present your skills in a easy to transition into that role kind of way, then it's also beneficial. As far as doing any courses to learn about analytical equipment maintenance, I haven't heard any myself. Does anyone here know?
I know that there are some online courses you can do through like the actual instrument the manufacturers. I actually haven't done any of them. Most of the maintenance stuff I was taught on the job.
Yeah. That's a very solid point there. So I would definitely look in this position if you're interested in an analytical equipment maintenance role. One of the key and starting levels of experience you should probably have is the frequent use of, because in most laboratories you will have to do basic maintenance too. That's the a fact. I mean, in my role we have a number of instruments, rheometers, SEM, HPLCs, and yes, we call people in to do major maintenance, but a lot of the time you do a lot of small jobs yourself. So look, definitely I personally would be trying to get a job at least using a lot of the analytical equipment, and through that you may be able to attend courses offered by the manufacturers to gain a little bit more experience. So I've got another question as well put out by Tristan. A couple of questions. What would you change in your job hunting approach with your knowledge today? I'm going to ask this back to Claire, so I'll get a question to you shortly, Maggie, but Claire, because sounds like you did a bit of job hunting, so tell us a little bit about what would you change in your approach if you had to redo it today?
It would have been a lot easier to find a job if I had done an internship during university. That's probably the main advice I would give about how to go about finding a job, because they often, if you do a summer internship somewhere, they'll just offer those interns the graduate roles.
Yes.
Instead of going to the market. Yeah, that would be the main thing. Work on your interviewing skills early, even though it's horrible and nobody really likes doing interviews. You have to learn how to do them well, because that's what the interviewers are going to be looking for. You have to know I'm sure Dave talks about it a lot, the STAR questions. You have to just look those up and practice doing those so that you can just bring them to the front of your mind when the interviewer asks. Yeah, that's my.
So Maggie had a bit of a look on her face when she heard STAR questions, and I know when you're applying for roles in defence, they're very big on STAR questions. Maggie, are you able to comment a little bit about that?
So I learnt about STAR for the first time through the RACI mentoring program, and it was very much the approach that I took throughout my application and interview questions. And in terms of the original question of what would you change, I wish I knew about these things earlier on in my career degree earlier on, and I wish I had thought about I wish I had been more proactive with networking earlier on in my degree. But the STAR approach, it's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Kaiin, you can probably attest to that too in the graduate application process. It's basically what you need to master, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot like at the assessment centers and in the video interviews, they definitely encourage a very structured way of approaching problems. They like to see, I've forgotten what STAR stands for now. I think it's situation, task, action, and then I forgot the R. But yeah, they just want you to have a very clear idea of how you've encountered problems and worked through them previously.
Yep, sure. Look, if anyone's interested to learn a little bit more about the STAR approach to answering questions, there is a webinar recording on the YouTube RACI mentoring program website. So that'll be an interesting one for everyone to have a look at. And I guess I think we probably answered the other part of that question. What do you think was the key to landing your specific job? Look, part of that key is, of course, getting your foot in the door to start with, and networking is going to play a very important role. Preparation for your interview, I personally believe, and I'm sure a lot of you, especially Maggie and Kaiin, can account, start developing your own STAR question and answers responses for particular questions. Even if you're not going for a government role, I think it definitely shows initiative and a degree of preparedness for an interview, and it's going to give you the confidence too. When those sort of questions come up, you're going to answer them, and they're going to definitely be the front runner in that application process. I also got another comment here about how to get a bit of experience in repairing equipment. And you know what? When you when you're a university student, you effectively have a lot of equipment at your fingertips there. And if you've got a good relationship with some of the academics and you have an opportunity to do some extracurricular research work, do the best you can to do that, to try and get that experience. And then you'll also get exposure to those instruments. There's a number of key instruments, particularly in the analytical field. Maybe Lauren, you can comment on what a couple of those key instruments might be to try and focus on getting skills in.
I mean, it does depend on what sort of analysis you are doing. I work really often with an ICP-MS and an ICP-OES, so optical emission spectroscopy and mass spectrometry. I also work with a mercury analyzer, which is abbreviated to a CTAC, but there's also, of course, your HPLC and GC, and depending on what kind of analysis you're doing, we don't have it, but if you have the chance to get some exposure to electron microscopy, I think that's really helpful, also just from understanding all the various components in these hyper complex machines.
Certainly. And if you do any analytical chemistry type course, I think you'll definitely be getting entry level exposure to a lot of those instruments too, and use that as a good platform. So thank you for answering. I've got a question by Salma. To what extent is LinkedIn helpful in the job hunting journey, and do you have any tips? I might throw this one out there. I think Claire just might have shown an interest in that question. What do you think, Claire? What do you think about LinkedIn?
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it doesn't help. It's good to have one just in case it does help. I know people who have gotten jobs through recruiters messaging on LinkedIn, and I also know people who don't have a LinkedIn and it was fine. Definitely my advice would be to make one, just so you have the opportunity to connect with people and reach out to people who could be doing jobs you're interested in. But my opinion on LinkedIn is, I don't know, sometimes good, sometimes a waste of time. Okay. Do it anyway. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a hand up here,
yeah,
Lauren.
Sorry. I have a similar thought process as Claire, but I actually found LinkedIn super helpful to see what kinds of jobs are out there. I had no idea what I wanted to do and needed to get some exposure to the different kinds of roles. And so just scrolling through scientific roles that were listed on LinkedIn was really interesting to sort of narrow down the field of, okay, I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in that. And also seeing where your skills overlap with certain roles that might surprise you. Okay,
interesting. And Kaiin, did you have any feedback on that one?
Yeah, I found LinkedIn, so essentially, like with my, applying for jobs for myself, I'd always kind of like try and tailor each resume that I'd send off to the job. And that sometimes would mean that I just couldn't fit all of the things that I wanted to fit onto my resume. And so I'd always have a link to my LinkedIn, which would kind of contain all the stuff that I've done. So, if recruiters were interested in knowing more, then they'd, be able to see a picture of me, my kind of, summary, stuff like that. So yeah, I actually found it quite helpful in that aspect.
I definitely second that. And you think of your LinkedIn profile like your online digital business card. And I might ask everyone the question here: did everyone prepare a business card before getting out there? I see a couple of nods here. It's a good way to sort of get yourself out there, particularly when you do a lot of these networking events, right? You've got something memorable to leave people with, and make sure you get that picture on the front of it too. It's always a good one.
Particularly these days, I always would get comments from people going, oh, wow, you already have a business card? Oh, that's fantastic. You're already thinking ahead. And yes. I think that sort of positive attitude is good to take away.
Yep, no, definitely, 100%. I might go back to those who jumped into graduate programs, because there's a question here from Emma. What did you guys personally do? I guess start with Maggie. What did you do personally to prepare yourself for the graduate program?
In terms of the application or the program itself?
We'll say the application.
So for the application, it was many-step process, but it was, I think the RACI mentoring program was helpful because that's where I learned the STAR approach. So writing my application to address the selection criteria, I definitely made sure I used that. I guess I sent my application to a couple of people to sort of comment and give me feedback before I actually sent it through. Before the interview, I did practice interviews with my mentor and sort of thought up responses for typical interview questions in very much a STAR style. So that's how I prepared myself for the application. The actual program itself, there was no way, like I had no idea what my job would actually be on a day-to-day level. I had a Skype interview, or Skype, I guess not interview, but a Skype call with my supervisor before I started the job. And they were pretty much like, just chill until you come. We'll teach you everything you need to know when you get here. And it was very much everything I did here, I learned on the job. I've learned so much in the last half year.
Fantastic. Sounds like you're really enjoying it. That's great to hear. I'm also going to jump into, because I applied for a graduate program as well, and I was lucky enough to have Dave as my mentor, and he'd be able to remember this. We sat down for a good couple of hours, and he helped me develop some STAR questions, and really helped me frame it and practice it too. And while it was extremely helpful to get me across the line, I wasn't successful in the end. But that's not to say it had anything not to do with my STAR questions. My STAR questions were gold. So thank you very much, Dave, for helping me through that, and definitely another testament to how useful the RACI mentoring program can be for us aspiring graduates. And Kaiin, what about yourself? How did you prepare?
So for the actual program itself, this is just my personality, but I'm a bit of an anxious guy. So when I started, when it was the summer holidays, 2019, I was actually just casually reading through a couple of textbooks, hoping to pick up something that might be useful for the grad program, just like anything. I was just maybe look through my old chemistry, lab notes, maybe look at a bit of stats and stuff. Because at that point I did know that I'd be going to data and analytics. So I started looking at my old stats courses and just hoping to get a bit of a head start. But in the end, it was all right. Like most graduate programs will train you on the job. It was okay. But in terms of the application process itself, so I think the first part I would say is the RACI mentoring program was really helpful. So I had the chance to be buddied up with someone in the public service. So he worked in the Queensland Department of Environment and Science, and he was a very successful guy. I got to kind of pick his brains about everything in public service. And I think from him, I kind of gleaned what it would take to be a successful public servant and what they're kind of looking for. Obviously clear communication skills is key in public service. So I tried to kind of apply that as much as I could in my written applications for those graduate programs. As I said, being organized, so preparing for commonly asked interview questions. So, they're going to ask, how do you work in the team? How did you find, teamwork? And you've got to prepare a good response to that. Other than that, I would just say, just be confident in your ability and your preparation as a chemist. Chemistry is a great thing to study, and it will prepare you for many different careers.
Fantastic. So that, I guess, brings me to the question I'd like to ask a lot of the other guys here, and I'll answer one myself as well. What are the typical interview questions that you might anticipate working in, say, industry versus working in government? Now, I got a job in a large multinational company, and I've had a number of interviews over my career, and the questions were very much centered around things like, how would you deal with this type of personality? Examples of what would you do in this particular situation? Anyone else have some interview questions that really stood out through the interview process? Put your hand up, shout out.
Tell us about a time you had to resolve a conflict.
Oof, good one. Maggie?
Tell us about a time where you failed.
Interesting question. We'll come back to how you answered that. No, maybe not. And what about you, Claire?
Joining PwC, I found, tell us about how you are going to make the transition from science into corporate life was that was a big one. Yeah.
That is a very good question, actually. Yeah. For those of you who may not be interested in going into a scientific or technical role in that sense and want to go more into, say, an industry or something a little bit left of center, prepare yourself for that question, because I think you'll be asked it quite a lot, definitely. And I guess, what about, I'll come back to you again, Kaiin, because you seem to, you had a bit of time with someone in the public service, and sounds like you also got a bit of support there. Do you have any other specific questions that really stood out during the interview process that maybe it's like, oh, I wish I didn't get asked that question, or you left and went, oh, I bombed out in that question? What's one that really, hit you hard?
So the first question was, very generic. Why do you want to work for the Department of Health? I had
Sure.
I knew my lines, right? I was interested in, public service, serving the community, science background, wanted to help people. There was like teamwork, had a pre-prep answer for that one as well. And then there was a question that was like, name a time you solved a problem and how you overcame a challenge, referred to, the days in the lab troubleshooting equipment. But the one that really stood out to me, the one that I was actually like stumped on for a good 20 seconds, they said, name a time when you had to solve a problem that was bigger than yourself. And I was completely unprepared for that one, because I just didn't, it just wasn't a typical one you'd find out from your mentor or like looking online. I think I ended up answering it because I had some job experience. Like I'd worked for a student organization at my university. So I ended up talking about, I think it was, I think the organization that I worked for had a bit of a reputation with its stakeholders previously. So coming into any role, they'd sort of have an impression of me before I'd even started talking. And so that was a problem that was bigger than me, that was out of my control, that I had to kind of try and manage. But yeah, that was one that really stood out to me. Like I stopped for a good 30 seconds to think about that one.
No, that's very good. And one thing that I've found as well in any place I've ever worked is your employer is trying to find someone that's going to fit in their organization. But that is also very important for you to consider. How well am I going to fit into this organization? Every company, every industry, every organization has a specific type of culture. And it's important that they're trying to find out how well you're going to fit. And part of fitting in is your ability to collaborate and work well with others. So I guess, if something is ever going to be bigger than you, remember, you're not an individual working in a group. You're working as part of a team, no matter where you go and no matter what you do. If you aren't able to work with your colleagues, you have to find a way to, because it's going to be important to your success in any industry, any organization you join. I'll just see, have there been any more questions? Okay, I've got a question here for pretty much anyone. An anonymous attendee has asked, since starting work, have you been able to find any opportunities to find mentoring, help, advice outside of your work for early career workers? Maybe I'll ask the question of Lauren. What do you think?
That's a really good question. I am still in contact with mentors I had through university, through the university and through the RACI program. And I know that there is an early career section for RACI that I probably should look more closely into. But outside of work, nothing immediately springs to mind. Not to say that it isn't there. I haven't been actively seeking it, I think.
Yeah, okay. And look, I guess one thing I like to say about sort of getting help and advice, just remember that the RACI mentoring program and the RACI organization itself is right behind you too. It's a very broad network of very accomplished people in the field of science and chemistry, and becoming a member is going to provide you opportunities to meet with a lot of people specifically in the field of chemistry or science you're interested in, but also if there's something you're interested in branching out to, I'd definitely be looking to maintain your membership or join if you're not already a member. But definitely maintain your membership, because I regularly get emailed out notifications, well, maybe not so much with COVID, but prior to COVID, about events, opportunities to meet and network with people. So you'd be surprised too, a lot of the people that were in the mentor program, very helpful to me. Not only my mentor, Dave, who was fantastic, but I think I met with 3 of the other mentors in the program, and they sat down, gave me their time, had great discussions, and helped me tailor my career path from there. But look, I'll just have a bit of a shout out to RACI as well. You can always send an email out to mentoring@raci.org.au, and they're there to help. So anytime you have any questions about trying to find a job, reaching out, building your network, that's where you want to go, I think. Let's see if we have another question here. Okay. I think we've answered most of the questions out there. I guess one other thing about mentoring too, it's always good to try and find a mentor in the organization you're in. Mentorings aren't necessarily formalized structures of teaching or education. Sometimes aligning yourself with someone that you would aspire to be like or could learn from is an important thing. And part of that is going to be coming down to showing interest and trying to build that relationship. In my particular case, our R&D manager, he's an extremely knowledgeable guy. He's coming close to retirement, unfortunately, but I'm going to make sure that I use every opportunity I can to sit down and speak to him and learn. He's seen my interest and my drive to learn, and even today, he came to my office, and for half an hour, we're having a talk about all sorts of things. We talk about chemistry, we talk about business, we talk about everything, but he's seen my willingness to learn, and he's willing to teach too. So partly show the willingness to learn, but also find someone who's willing to teach you too. So I want to get a couple more questions in before we come to time. It's about 7:20 with about 10 minutes to go. Okay, question for Lauren. Is there something that you think something everyone should know while they're still at uni? Hard question.
That's a hell of a question. Something that everyone should know. Am I still here? Yeah, sorry, it lagged out for half a second. Something that everyone should know.
I might go around the room a little bit. Does
I don't
anyone
have an immediate answer for that one. I would say ask someone else.
Yeah, no, I'll ask around. Maybe Claire, is there something that you wish you knew while you're at university, now that you're out there in the field?
More about the job hunt, really. I wish I'd known earlier how difficult it would be. And I think people should know that if it is difficult to find a job, that's sort of normal, and it's not a reflection of you as a person, because everyone gets rejected for jobs, but nobody really talks about how much they get rejected.
Yep.
So I don't know if I had anything to say to people still at uni, is that it is going to be hard, but it's hard for everybody.
Definitely. Look, I myself had my share of disappointments, but was proactive at least because I had the support of Dave, and I was out there applying well before I finished and getting ready. Actually, I applied to work for a competitor to the company that I work for now, and I say their loss, but also my gain too, because I found a great organization to work for who's extremely supportive and effectively nurtures my learning as an individual, and not just for the organization, but also for myself. I've got a question here from Neve. How valuable is doing honours? And I know, Maggie, you did your honours at UCID, not in the same year as me, but how valuable do you think doing honours is? Maggie, hello?
Sorry, my internet is a little bit unstable. So to clarify the question, how valuable do I think doing honours is?
Yes.
Was that question? So honours was really the first chance where I had to really take a project into my own hands and actually have a project of myself to work with. Other than honours, everything before honours, all the problems that we had to solve had a clear and definite answer. Regardless of whether it was maths or chemistry, there was always one answer. And it's only in having research experience where you actually come across questions where there is no one right answer. It's how do you solve a problem in whatever way that you can, and it's not clear cut. So in terms of learning how to deal with a problem that is not as straightforward as all the problems that you do throughout the rest of your degree, I think honours was very, very useful in that. On top of that, it's also the only time where you have 9 months to essentially work on one thing. So you're very, very focused, or at least you need to learn how to be very focused, or else you won't get very far, at least very far. So in terms of that, I think it's very useful in learning to be independent and tackle open-ended questions. So I found it very useful. That said, the honours experience is very much up to the individual. So you get as much as you put in. So if you don't do anything throughout the year, you won't get anything out of it. It's very much self-driven. That's my experience. You get as much as you put into it.
I certainly agree with you there, Maggie. And I'm just going to jump over to a question for Claire. Question from Emma. Hi, Claire. How did you stand out in your PwC interview as a graduate with a background in chemistry?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask the interviewer. I'm still sort of shocked that they hired me. I think chemists and scientists in general have a real advantage maybe over most people who are going to be applying for those sorts of roles. Like you've got a whole bunch of skills in data analysis, data presentation, problem solving, thinking skills that most commerce graduates who you'd be competing with would not necessarily be at the same level as that. And I think if you just have to convince your interviewer that you can do those things despite not having the same background as everyone else. You basically just have to be confident in your skills. Yeah, I don't have a really good answer about
No, actually,
how to do that. It depends on the interviewer as well a lot, whether they're going to be receptive to you.
I think that's a very good answer. And in a way, you're saying you have to stand out as who you are and be unique in a sense. And if you go in there as a chemistry graduate in a pool of commerce graduates who have far less, I guess, data analytical skills, I mean, you've got a point of difference right there. So effectively, highlight whatever strengths you have, and demonstrate that as best as you can, and stand out in the crowd. And that's really, I think, my advice there on how you can kind of, be noticed or be considered. No, thanks, Claire. Good answer. And a question quickly. We're coming really close to time. A couple of minutes. One more for Kaiin. What's your take on doing honours? How valuable was it for you?
Yeah, I look back on honours and I think it was definitely the most valuable, the best, and also the toughest year of my education. I think I see Maggie nodding there. So yeah, look, I think if I could summarize it, I would summarize it in this saying that hard times make strong people, right? And honours just throws so many different problems at you, and more or less you can't really escape them. They're in front of you. It's your project. You've got to find a way, obviously with the assistance of your supervisor and your peers, but mostly it's your project, and you've got to find a way to solve those problems. So yeah, and I think that's very different to undergraduate because, like as Maggie said, there are clear defined answers in undergraduate. The answer is 5 or whatever. But in honours, it's everyone moves at their own pace. Everyone has different projects. And I guess I kind of learned from the most important thing I learned from honours was just the importance of persistence. and not so much comparing yourself to others, because it is your project. Everyone's project's different. Some people, just their project's difficult, and they might not get as many results as other projects. But yeah, I guess I kind of learned to. It's more about the lessons learned during your project rather than what people think are results. Yeah, honours was a very great experience. I think I look back on it and it was, very good.
Okay, fantastic. And I've got a question here from an anonymous attendee here, and I'm going to go around the room and just ask for a quick one if I can. Maybe start with Lauren. What things are you doing today to help continue to advance your career?
Well, before COVID, I was still attending RACI run events, staying in contact with people who I met in uni and at those events, and just to keep a sense of what's out there, what's going on. And if we can circle back to me later, I think I have an answer for what people should know
Before they leave uni. Okay, cool. We'll just circle around. Maggie, question for you. What are you doing today to continue to advance your career?
Whenever I see a learning opportunity that's there, I take it as a why not experience. So I think there's lots of analytical techniques that if it comes across my path, I'll just learn it as I go. So that's, for example, I did not know how to code before my job now, and that's a solid chunk of what I'm doing now. So learning to be computer literate is one of the things that I'm doing to upskill.
Fantastic. Upskilling. It's the way to go, definitely. Claire, what about yourself?
Yeah, just keep trying new things if you can. If somebody has an interesting project that they want you to help with, just even if you don't have experience, you'll get it by doing it. Keep getting education if you can. I'm doing part-time study just because it'll help with my job. Basically, keep looking for opportunities to keep learning.
Fantastic. And Kaiin?
Yeah, same. So just looking constantly for opportunities to learn and to grow. So if you see someone like the person sitting next to you talking about an interesting meeting that they're about to go to, ask if you can tag along. If you've got a spare half hour or something in your lunch break, read some papers that might be relevant to your area. Just keep motivated and drive to learn.
Fantastic. Yeah, learning is a lifelong journey, as they say. So definitely keep getting out there and learning what you can. In my particular case, my organisation has a learning matrix effectively that allows you to work towards developing certain skills, and you'll find that in big multinational corporations. You'll tick off boxes effectively as part of a training program, and then that opens up opportunities for you to progress into more advanced roles too. So I'm working on that structure from my perspective. And I think we have just under a minute to go, so I might have to start wrapping things up. I'm sorry, Lauren, I think you were dying to answer that question, unless you could answer it in 20 seconds or so.
Yeah, basically that career trajectories aren't always linear. Particularly these days, people will have a lot of different kinds of careers, and the more you hear about people's histories, there's a whole range of opportunities out there, and it doesn't have to be from this to this. It can go completely sideways.
Definitely, 100%. Thank you all so much, everyone. Tonight's been another event as part of the RACI Careers Development Program. Through webinars, networking events, mentoring, lectures and workshops, the RACI Career Development Program aims to help graduating students get the best possible start in their careers. There's some upcoming career events, which include the new online networking initiative called Camaraderie, which is on Wednesday, July the 8th at 5 p.m. Another webinar, What I Wish I Knew at the Beginning of My Career, on Thursday, 23rd of July at 6:30 p.m. The recording of this event will be uploaded to the Careers Development YouTube channel over the next few days, as well as to our careers site, www.dcstechnical.com.au/careers. In the meantime, thanks to all the presenters tonight, Maggie, Claire, Kaiin, Lauren, and to our sponsors, Envirolab, Laboratory Credit Union, and DCS Technical. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Great to talk to you all.